talk about the role of purpose in organizational excellence, how aligning strategy with purpose leads to high-performing workplaces.
It's been quite a journey the last 3 or 4 decades looking at organizations as they strive to improve and strive to be best in their industry and compete.
And what it takes to build a high-performing company, the key behaviors that distinguish great organizations.
To see some of these companies that are doing this very purpose-centered work, and they see things like when we talk about that aspirational goal setting, when we talk about aspirational goals, the level that we're looking for is the goal that whether you're an Elon Musk fan or not a fan, as you look at what he's done over the course of his career, he's created these.
And how organizations can develop internal talent to sustain excellence, and the importance of leadership succession planning and building a lasting legacy.
So there are those very tried and true practices with succession planning that most folks, with AI and with any other form of automation, starting back when we did in the 80s with robotics and those kinds of things. It's always a question about
Welcome to another episode of Boardsi Leadership Talks. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, Boardsi CEO and co-founder. And today we have an exciting discussion lined up with an expert in operational excellence and business transformation, Ted Iverson. Ted has spent nearly 4 decades helping organizations move from good to great, aligning strategy with purpose and designing high-performing, engaged workplaces. As the managing director of Iverson Consulting Group and a senior advisor at Opus Works, he has worked with leaders across industries, guiding them to sustain long-term improvements and build lasting organizational legacies. He has also been a member of the Shingo Board of Examiners, where he evaluates some of the best operating companies worldwide, providing executive-level feedback on achieving excellence. Today, we'll dive into what makes great organizations thrive, how leaders can drive lasting impact, and the power of purpose in business success. Ted, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Martin. It's so nice to meet you and nice to be able to visit.
Absolutely. Wish you were here in Vegas, but we'll do this remote, so it's
That would
okay.
be fun. I'm just north in Idaho, so similar time zone, but not nearly as warm as you guys. So
We do warm up here pretty quick.
very good.
So let's dive into it. Let's talk about the role of purpose in organizational excellence, how aligning strategy with purpose leads to high-performing workplaces, the impact of purpose-driven culture on long-term business success.
Yeah.
Can you cover that a little bit?
You bet. Happy to share some of the learning on that. It's been quite a journey the last 3 or 4 decades looking at organizations as they strive to improve and strive to be best in their industry and compete for talent and compete for market and those kinds of things. The ones that I've been very fortunate, I guess, maybe I back up just a little bit. I got invited to be an examiner for the Shingo Prize. This is my 30th year for that. But for those who don't know, Shingo is kind of the global standard for operational excellence. So if you feel like you're one of the top performing organizations globally, you would submit 3 years worth of very strong improvement data along with some records about culture and being at the top of the game. And they would evaluate that, and then a team of examiners comes and provides feedback so you can keep getting better, but then also to help recognize the achievements that you've made. And early in my career, I was fortunate. I think they must have been hurting on talent, because I was invited to be an examiner, and I probably didn't deserve to be in the room. Because there are a lot of very intelligent, short people, and I was fortunate to be there. But this purpose thing is something that I've picked up over those last 3 decades. It used to be that with a lot of tools focus and a lot of technical systems you could work on being the best in your industry and those kinds of things. And with an engineering background, I kind of gravitate towards that technology kind of stuff. But the more you look at it, and over these decades, there are examples where in some specific industries and more that widens out, people at the top of the organization find that good that they're doing as an organization. Call it purpose, call it mission, call it whatever you want to. But there is a goodness that happens inside every organization. And as they align that then to their strategic initiatives and goals, it starts to resonate with people. It starts to be easy responses to things that we hear guys like Simon Sinek talk about, explaining the why. Purpose is that way that we respond to why is this important? Why should I care? Why do I need to be engaged? And answering at a very granular level, why people want to be included in process improvement, continuous improvement, call it whatever you want. Some great examples that were shared with me, and as I learned from organizations during that Shingo examination process, started to bring that to light. And I'm happy to share those stories when it seems appropriate. So,
Sounds good. Yeah, bring him up whenever. I was going to jump into from good to great and what it takes to build a high performing company, the key behaviors that distinguish great organizations, and how leaders can set aspirations and implement holistic improvement plans.
yep, yep, I appreciate that. There are a ton of organizations that do really well, right? They do a good job. They have continuous improvement and operational excellence programs that are in place. They regularly achieve their goals on an annual basis and continue to get that additional 3 or 6% or whatever those goals are. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a whole nother layer of opportunity to be able to move into areas that are well beyond just the 3 and 6% every year. And so combining that purpose then with aspirational type goals, typically I'll bring organizations to see some of these companies that are doing this very purpose-centered work, and they see things like lead times that used to be 26 days and now it's 20 minutes. Those that have improved their productivity by 3 and 4 and 500%, and actually gone vertical in their value chain to be able to compete with, as they take out competitors at each layer, they then begin to compete more vertically in the value chain with greater service to their customers. But those kinds of things, when we talk about that aspirational goal setting, usually I'll visit with leaders. When we talk about aspirational goals, the level that we're looking for is the goal that when you share it with people, they come back to you and they say, that's not possible. And as a leader, that's true, right? I've asked you to achieve something you're not capable of doing. But the leader's response then is, you're right. That's not possible the way we do it now, because I don't want you to work harder at how we're doing it now. I don't want you tightening the screws. What I want to do is cause an entirely different way of thinking about how we might move into that new level of performance. And so the good to great is usually that leap. It's the movement from tightening everything to being able to completely look at it differently and say, if I'm going to improve, if I'm going to double output, how am I going to do it? And no fair adding a bunch of capital or adding a bunch of people, right? Is creativity before capital. So with what we have now, how might we double what we're doing, or whatever increment that is? And then, of course, that begins the thinking that starts to take us in those directions.
Thinking that leads them to changes.
Yeah, significant changes in what if and how could we. Creating that safe space for people becomes important, right? Because in a lot of corporate cultures, and especially those multinational organizations that have that great business planning process in place, we want to be able to achieve the business plan, but at the same time, we want people to feel confident that they can stretch for the stars, and if they only get to the moon, great. We're happy with that, but we've got that corporate plan in place, so we know, where we're at and utilizing those resources appropriately, but creating that balance between what is the plan and how do I execute to the plan, along with how do I push aspirations so that that is the expectation rather than mediocrity.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, just my 2 cents, worth nothing.
No,
Uh,
it's
I think letting them know that, failure is part of change and adaptability, but as long as you're learning from failure and getting better, then I think it will lead into that greatness. I mean, that's just my feeling.
absolutely. No, no, you're spot on. That feeling of being willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some of our viewers have, been through the latest, book by Walter Isaacson about Elon Musk. One of the things, whether you're a Elon Musk fan or not a fan, as you look at what he's done over the course of his career, he's created these learning opportunities where they push to failure, and especially with SpaceX and doing a lot of the NASA things that, years ago, NASA was very good at breaking those barriers down. He's accelerated that learning by being willing to push to failure, capture the learnings,
Yeah.
come back and reinvest. So,
Yeah, he talks about that a lot, actually, pushing
yeah.
to failure, yeah.
It's a great thing, and I guess the other thing that I appreciate that he does is that, in a lot of, uh, Western businesses, we've started to outsource a lot of things that we do, and definitely there are benefits and opportunities there, but sometimes it prevents us from being able to see our entire supply chain and how we might have that push at each layer of that supply chain as manufacturing products are developed or as services are offered. Um, without that visibility of the entire supply chain and being willing to accept the risk and the learning that comes with it, we've lost a lot of opportunities. So um, it kind of goes back to that, vertical value chain again. How much we're willing to take on and modify what we can do for customers and clients.
Yep. Let's switch gears to sustainable leadership and multi generational success, and how organizations can develop internal talent to sustain excellence, and the importance of leadership succession planning and building a lasting legacy.
Yeah, yeah. So there are those very tried and true practices with succession planning that, most folks are familiar with. The danger that I see a lot of organizations get into is when you have a great leader, you fail to codify what it is they're really doing, and you take for granted all of that tremendous stuff. I had a food processing organization company I was working with a number of years ago. Great leader in place, great practices that he seemed to just do naturally. They were just part of who he was, part of his upbringing, part of his DNA, call it whatever it was. He was awesome. But I had seen that before, and I told them, I said, "That guy's gotta stay in place for at least 5 years so we can codify everything below him, and then what he's doing and how he interacts with his, direct reports and also, stakeholders outside the organization. We've gotta be able to codify that and then create those qualifications for the next individual to fill that role." So we're hiring based on aptitude and ability, rather than some of those, less traditional things. But being able to put him in place and document all of those things allowed us then to have a better idea of what does success look like and how do we sustain that into the future? How do I get somebody that, has those natural tendencies, not just the ability, but the natural tendency to be able to, encourage risk taking, like we talked about before, hold people accountable in a friendly way and still motivational, but then with great respect about developing that excellence.
Yeah. And here's a question follow up to that. I know that some people have that naturally, and it sounds like you met a guy that does that. I've been taking risks since I was 16 years old, trying crazy businesses and being an entrepreneur. And I explored it because I came from a communist country. So having that freedom to do it here in America is an amazing opportunity. But I have seen people that have it and people that don't have it. Do you think if somebody mentors under a person that has that natural ability, do you think they can learn and adapt and it can be passed on?
Um, I think they can learn a lot of those things, but the critical element that I think most of the time is missing is that they have an effective feedback mechanism, right? So, early in my career as a young engineer, I thought I was pretty good. I had a lot of early promotions, given lots of responsibility. I was building commercial aircraft, and just I was pretty proud of myself, and pretty confident. Then we put in, and this is where I got my introduction to a lot of these techniques. We started a feedback mechanism that allowed all of my direct reports to evaluate Ted on our top 12 attributes of, great leader attributes. And it wasn't like modern 360s where I could pick my friends to respond to the survey, right? Um, it was all of my direct reports and all of their direct reports. 100% would evaluate Ted on these 12 items. Back in those days, human resources didn't smooth out any of the comments. So when I saw the scoring, it was there, but also all the comments were just bold and bare. And for sure, there were some people who loved me, right? But there was a good solid group of people who did not like me at all, not a bit. And honestly, I cried my way through the first feedback session. It just hurt so bad that I saw that some folks, and I could see the justification. I could see that I had led poorly and negatively impacted so many people that, it caused for me a moment where I had to say, "I've gotta get this right or I've gotta get out of this leadership spot because I'm not doing the job I need to do." I don't think if I hadn't had that feedback mechanism in place, I think I would have been able to deceive myself about how good of a leader I was.
Yeah.
I think that was a key for me. And then the mentor kicked in, right? Because he and I could look at that feedback mechanism and we could say, Ted, you're doing better in these areas, but you still need to do better in this. You might need to, uh, you know, uh, do some extra effort in these. Let's put this into your standard approach. And so that's what I'm looking for. And we help a lot of clients to put that in place if they don't have it. How do I get the feedback to leaders so they know, am I doing this well? Or am I just, very verbal in it? And most leaders are great at talking, right?
Yeah.
Am I really talking about it, but not just really practicing it?
Action behind the talk. Yep. I get it. What about the future of operational excellence and business improvement? Basically, how AI, automation, and technology are shaping the next era of business improvement, and what leaders should focus on today to stay ahead in tomorrow's business landscape.
Yeah, I appreciate that question a lot because um, with AI and with any other form of automation, starting back when we did in the 80s with robotics and those kinds of things, it's always a question about how we focus that capability. Um, you can get the answer you want even out of AI if you ask the question the right way, but you can also ask the question the wrong way too. Over and over again, I can continue to see organizations who approach that capability in ways that are not as beneficial or long-term sustaining. And typically, the dividing point that I help companies look for is if your automation, if your AI is enabling individuals in your organizations to do more, to do more easily, to do more volume, capability, that kind of stuff. If AI serves the person, then AI and automation uh, becomes more useful over time. If we use automation or if we use AI to replace the person completely, um, that payback period is very much shorter because, number one, the technology continues to advance rapidly. And so the individual who previously was using AI or automation to do those activities now is no longer there, and we fail sometimes to be able to keep up with the technology without the human involved. So if automation serves us, it seems to sustain for a long time. If we end up serving the automation doesn't replace itself as fast as the new technology is available, and so we end up falling behind. I hope that makes sense. The way
No, it does. It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I always say, I mean, especially with AI, I always say it's there to enhance our work, not replace us.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the capability serves the human, not the human serving, the intelligence kind of thing. So totally agree.
Yep. Um, okay. So you wanted an opportunity. I think this is going to put you in that opportunity of using some examples. Um, Lessons from the best, insights from the Shingo Board of Examiners, key takeaways from assessing world class organizations, common pitfalls companies face in achieving operational excellence, and how to overcome them.
Yeah, yeah, happy to share. So one of those fun stories I love telling. I was in Clonmel, Ireland, leading a team of examiners on a Shingo site visit, and my responsibility was to go down and begin at the end, right, to see the shipping and receiving area, and start working my way back through the processes. And this was a medical device company that made stents for your arteries so that you could, keep those flowing properly and sustain your life. And so I go down in the shipping and receiving area, and I'm meeting with the leader in that area, and we get introduced. And I said, "So tell me what you do here." And his first response is, "We relieve pain and suffering." And I said, "Well, how do you do that in shipping and receiving area?" And his people are starting to gather around, and he said, "Well, you know about our products, right?" And I said, "I do. I know about the stents. I know about the different models and all of that." And then he says, "None of that happens if our inventories are not right, if our labeling is not right, if our packaging is not right, if the dates that we've scheduled, if we're not hitting those dates." And he starts going through all of those strategic objectives that are defined for his area and connecting it to the purpose on top about relieving pain and suffering. And his people were gathered around, they were nodding their heads. It was like they were convincing me that their area was the very most important thing anywhere, right, in relieving pain and suffering. And you could tell it was very heartfelt engagement, it was important to them. And when I asked, I said, "So how do you know that's really happening? How do you know that you're really, providing this, relief from pain and suffering?" Well, their leadership had put in place every month, somebody would come to visit and do a luncheon address, and they would record it for the off shift. And they would be firsthand users, right? Here's what my life was like before. Then I had my operation. Here's what my life is like now. Sometimes these people were even related to folks that were working at the factory, right? So on a regular monthly basis, they're seeing evidences of how their work has positively impacted people. And in that kind of environment, you start to get, and I see this across multiple organizations, but you start to get people who say things like, "I had a lot of crappy jobs before this, and now I love working here, and I actually feel like I'm supposed to be doing the things that I'm doing at this time, at this place." And they feel like they have been led and directed to be where they are doing the things they're doing with this organization. So you get that personal alignment with organizational purpose, individual purpose with organizational purpose, and that alignment there. That's where the magic starts to happen.
Part of the purpose.
It is. They're part of the purpose. It's part of them. It's part of that meaning. It's like, this is work and I get paid for it, but I would probably come and do this anyway just because it's such a good thing. Um, I've seen that in that industry with, medical devices. I've seen it in safety devices for automotive where they're making, airbags, where in the front lobby they've got a car that's completely crushed in, and a piece of paper out in front to say, here's the family that was in this car. Here's what happened. Here's how they came out of it. And here's how what you did saved the lives
Wow.
of people who were there. And those kinds of
Powerful.
things. Yeah. Then you walk in and you say, it's our job. We have to do this. This is
Yeah.
important. In some industries, that's tough, right? I've spent the last 6 or 7 years in mining, and getting that purpose connection in mining, because any commodity area is tougher to see, the direct customer impact. And yet, if you start digging for it, if you ask people, what makes you really proud to work here? In those moments where you feel like, God, I'm sure glad I work here. What does that look like? And what's the story behind that? People start to tell you what that purpose is for them. And then as leaders, we start looking for, how do we connect that? How do we make that transparent? And unfortunately, so many times as leaders, we're focused on resolving issues that we don't focus very well on the positive stuff about, what is our organization doing? What are the good things that we're achieving? And how do I get more of that to happen more consistently, more systemically, more repeatably? How do I get more of that to happen? And by making more of that happen, I'm actually squeezing out the bad stuff by getting everybody to focus on making that good stuff happen. So
That's
lots of
awesome,
yeah,
Ted.
lots of fun stuff. But it's,
Yeah.
when I first got into all of this, I thought, 10 years. I mean, I was back in the mid 80s when I thought 10 years and this market's going to be saturated and I'll have to figure out something else to do. And the truth of the matter is that the more I do, the more I see opportunities, and the organizations I work with continue to do better and better stuff. So it's exciting to be there, and you understand, I'm sure, like a lot of the industrial psychologists, when you solve a problem, when you make something better, there's that dopamine release that comes, and you get this feeling of goodness. Um, it's cool when you have a system in place that gets an entire culture within a company addicted to that dopamine release. So that,
Absolutely.
they come to work and it's like, yeah, home is good, but I like work. This is an awesome place to be. And that's, I think everybody deserves to have a work environment like that. To be valued, to be contributing, to make a difference. Um, I think people deserve to have a work environment like that. And
Yeah, and I know it helps when personal mission, vision, values align with company mission, vision, and values, aka purpose. I can tell why you love doing what you do because I can sense your purpose. So, but yeah, aligning your personal with what that company's doing will definitely help you coming into work feeling good
absolutely.
and wanting to come to work. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
wanting to be there. Yeah, the
yes,
problem companies have with retention nowadays, keeping good talent and keeping them there. It's often not paycheck related. It's often not, anything else other than, do I really feel like I'm part of this
yeah,
and part of being there.
absolutely.
So it's
Well,
good.
Ted, this has been a very insightful conversation when it comes to leadership, operational excellence, building high performing organization. Your expertise in helping businesses align purpose with strategy, sustain long term improvements, and create engaged workplaces. There's the key. Is truly invaluable. And for our listeners, if you're looking to transform your organization, drive lasting success, or learn more about Ted's approach to business excellence, be sure to visit Iverson Consulting Group. And Ted, before we go, any final thoughts or advice for leaders looking to take their business from good to great? And how do we get hold of you? How do the listeners get hold of you?
Yeah. The thing I usually recommend with leaders that are looking in this direction, come with us. Um, come with us and see some of those organizations that have this, and visit with them. We do a very in-depth, we call it BPX, the best practice exchange. Come with us and see if that's what you want for your organization. You get to visit with frontline people, mid-level people, and then also top executives in a peer-to-peer sharing. And we do those at least quarterly every year.
Awesome.
Come with us and see. And if that's what you want for your organization, we start talking about how to get there.
Awesome. Once again, thank you, Ted, for sharing your expertise with us today. And and to our audience, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Boardsi Leadership Talks. And be sure to follow, subscribe, and stay connected for more insights from top leaders and innovators. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and driving excellence. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ted.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Talks. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Your support means a lot to us.